Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Now that we have our database created, we need to start adding tables onto our database so that we can store information. So the conventional way or the straight way, forward way is normally to come to the database and give a table name and then start doing some lorem ipsum here and doing some configuration. But then we are not going to do it that way. We're going to go the Laravel way, which is migration. So if you come to the Laravel documentation and you look for migration, it's under database migrations. You will see this documentation. Let's just take a look at it and see what it's saying. It says migrations are like version control for your database, allowing your team to modify and share the application database schemas. Migrations are typically paired with Laravel schema builders to build your application database. So what it's saying here is rather than for you to have it an SQL file, you can write your database schema alteration stuff using Laravel migrations, and it's easy to create it using the make migration command, the make migration artisan command. So for example, if you want to create a table that handles users, you just do php artisan make migration create users table. But remember, our example here had to do with students, so we are going to create a class list of students. So we're going to do maybe something like php artisan make migration create students tables. So we go back to our code. We open our stuff here. So we're going to do php artisan make migration create students table as it says. So let me show you where it is going to create the migration. So for all migrations, it's created under database migration. So by default, there are a couple of like 3 migration files. We'll look at what this does. These 3 does. So we do php artisan migrate. So when I will do this, it will add a new file here. If we do this, so we see that it has created a new file. This is a file that it has created. It has created a new file that will create a database table called students and has an ID, then a timestamp. Going back to the tutorial, you can look at more about how to customize this file. You could say it is created for the users table and maybe other stuffs, but we want our based on our student controller here. We know that a student has an ID, a student has a name, and a student has a score, right? And an ID has already been created, table ID. So ID is auto increment. You can look at this from here. Scroll down. So this is it. These are the various available columns. So these are actually columns. So when you do this, it's like you're adding a new column called ID. And this is a timestamp field that you're adding. So if you come here, you see that, okay, table ID says alias of table big increment ID. So this is big increment. So it's a big integer and it has auto increment. So we have foreign key. So if we want to look at this big increment, okay, there's a big increment. Auto increment unsigned big integer primary key. So if you're looking for a string, this is char, specific character with a particular length. If it's a date, it's this. If it's a binary, it's this. If it's a big integer, it's this. If there is let's say varchar, okay, there's integer also here, right? So what we want to look for is the part that has string. Let's see what string. Okay, okay, that's that. I've lost that a bit. Okay, okay, oh great, this is string. So this is varchar column with a length. So we want to give it a varchar. In this case, now we say we know that we have our name, it's supposed to be varchar. So we say table string, right, name, and we want to say how long would that be. Approximately the name could be, let's say, 100 characters, right? And we want a score, right, table, and the score will be an integer. right? We don't want the decimal point, and we call it score. And all of them are mandatory. So how do we ensure, how do we get the contents now of this, how do we migrate this database, how do we run this migration such that it will now persist itself onto our PHP admin? Because currently we don't have anything on the, we don't have anything on our PHP admin. So basically what we need to do is we open our terminal for us to run this migration. We run PHP artisan migrate, right? Okay, so we have run PHP artisan migrate. So you notice that it has done a couple of stuff. It has run 1, 2, 3, 4 migrations. So the first migration was to create a users table. This comes by default with all PHP with all Laravel based projects. It comes with a users migration. It comes with a password reset migration, that's in case you forgot your password, and it comes with a failed jobs migration. So this one is when you're doing queuing. So if we come to our database and we refresh this, we'll see that we have all the tables that have been created. We have migration. This is by default. When you're creating migration, you have password reset, you have students, you have users. So if we come under students, we'll see that we have the ID, we have a name, we have a score, but we have two more fields which we did not specify: created at and updated at. So created at and updated at are based on the fact that we used, let me close this, we used the timestamp field. If you come here, we'll see this as timestamp. So timestamp is basically a method that helps you to automatically create the created at and the updated at. So those fields are used to track how data operations are being done when the field or when the record was created and when the record was also updated. So we already have now our database operations. We have a migration that's created our database. You can look at more options about database migrations in the on the documentation. And the next point, we're going to look at models.